Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
Welcome into Kickin It, everybody. It's not a Victory Monday. I'm sorry.
Something did not come up.
I think today, my goal for this show, I don't know if necessarily
burn the world down.
Nope, no.
Oh,
put the matches down. Is to talk about why what happened, but then also to kind of like shake it off and move on to the next week. So we're actually going to shift a couple things around today. We're, as always, brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing, Kelderman.com, Circle K. There is lots of stuff that you can have Kelderman do, and whether that's something through heavy machine, something little. We're coming up on the Christmas season. If you're hitting something manufactured, something made like a grate or something like a sign you can post in the yard, Kelderman.com. We are going to go a slightly different direction than we normally do. We normally put our interviews at the end of the episodes. We're actually going to put an interview at the start. And the reason why we're putting it at the start is because it's fun and hopeful and optimistic. And by the time you get through the end of that interview, like, I feel better about myself. And then we'll talk about the Texas Tech game on a more level playing field as opposed to our pets' heads are falling off.
Well, my pet's head did fall off. Just kidding, but he did puke again today for like the 4th time in 6 days. So I don't know what's going on.
Hey, stop throwing up, dog.
I know, he didn't even eat. I think it's because I'm wrestling with him too much and then I just get in his face and talk shit. Again.
Stop punching
Winston.
Stop punching. Less suplexes.
No, I give him belly rubs.
It's too many scratches. So we are going to get to an interview right away. We'll talk about the Texas Tech. We'll talk about Kansas upcoming, kind of the rest of the season after that. But we do have a super, super fun interview, right? And it is with someone from the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, but they're not Irish. I was going to do my accent and just see how it is against an Irish person, or like not against, but like compared, and just get a grade on it. But this guy's not Irish.
He's also not a dingus, but he does work for Aer Lingus.
Anyway. So this is a fun interview that actually you should enjoy. This is John Anthony, CEO of the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. And now we welcome in a guest. We haven't had a guest in a while on Kickin It, but this is a very fun guest because I think we collectively need a little bit of a pick-me-up, and the pick-me-up is fairly green. So this is John Anthony. He is the co-founder of the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Can you tell us nice things that are going to happen down the road? Just because, for your perspective, we were talking about this before we were recording, as we had a bad day, but you had a bad day because both teams lost.
Twice. Yes, tough Saturday, but we'll move on, and we'll look forward to next year when it'll be the best game experience you've ever had.
So the first thing, I think, a lot of the representatives from the Aer Lingus College Football Classic came over to, I think it was the Baylor game, and they were in the press box. They got to talk to some reporters, but the fans didn't get to hear directly from them too much. So the thing that I was really interested in, and I think what most fans, Iowa State fans, are really kind of like curious about, is how did Iowa State and Kansas State get selected? Because that rivalry, if you were to pick two teams that Iowa State wants to beat in any given year, one is Iowa, one is Kansas State. So the fact that you get to play them in Ireland is awesome. So how did Iowa State and Kansas State get selected, either independently or together?
It was definitely together, but the thought process was the same on both schools. We are looking for a few things. One is really rabid, loyal fan base that we think will travel to Ireland. A second is high quality football. And then a third is just projecting out what's it going to look like in that season where we've got them, and in the season leading up to it. So, Iowa State and Kansas State both checked all three boxes. We've been, my other hat being the travel side of it, managing travel for Iowa State athletics for a long time, both every day with the teams and coaches and staff. as well as the fan travel. So we have vivid memories of things like the Alamo Bowl in 2018, where you took over San Antonio. And so we know what the Cyclone Nation does. So that's been in my mind as somebody we want to have in Ireland ever since that. So that was always in my mind, was just when would we maybe find the right matchup? And Kansas State fans obviously have a great reputation for travel as well. And then team was strong and quarterback's young and coming back. So we think it'd be strong this year, which has certainly played out very nicely until Saturday. But we can withstand one loss, right? That's okay. And so that's how it looks. That's how we got to this.
So, John, I want to ask you a little bit about the history of the game, because obviously this year Georgia Tech and Florida State played. I don't think they're really quite rivals. Obviously, Iowa State and Kansas State are. But can you tell us just kind of the history of the game and maybe a little foreshadowing? I'm not trying to look past the Iowa State Kansas State game, because obviously that's what we're talking about here. But what are some of the future matchups for the game as well?
Yeah, so the history goes back before it was the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. There had just been one-offs of games played in Ireland going back to 1996 was the first one I was involved in with Notre Dame Navy. Then 2012, again, Notre Dame Navy. And that's the one that changed everything. That's when...
I remember that Notre Dame Navy game because I was still playing. And I remember seeing that on TV. Like, that was really cool. But I do remember that experience happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was an early... that was a week one game. The 96 game was early November, actually. And so that 2012 game was the first time that a stadium was full and that we had over 30,000 Americans went to it. So 16,000 Americans went in 96. Same two teams went 16 years later, and it doubled to 32,000 Americans. So that's there's something here. Everybody that went, it was kind of like Woodstock. We all heard from our previous generations. Everybody claimed they were there. And so the 2012, we called it the Emerald Classic. It was our Woodstock. Everybody, like 50,000 people claimed they were there in a stadium that only, held 48,000. And so they all had gone back from 96. They went again. They told their friends and that. So we thought there was something special there. And I had serviced both games in a capacity of working for the schools and hosting fan travels and helping the teams navigate that, and wanted it to go on. And when we couldn't get a stadium or any other promoter to put it on and to keep it going, we thought it was too good to let it die. And so entered into a joint venture with an Irish partner and got Aer Lingus as a title sponsor, got some government support, because it's a very expensive thing to put on, right? We have to pay out a home team stadium so the revenue works and cover all the expenses for massive travel parties for both teams. So with that support, we took some risk and played the first Aer Lingus Classic in 2016. That was our proof of concept to see if it would work. That was Boston College and Georgia Tech. We thought we were onto something. Then we had to get the support to re-up. We did. We announced a 5-game series. COVID hit. It canceled our 2020 game, our 2021 game. Came back in 2022 with Nebraska and Northwestern, a game that went down to the last possession. Then in 2023, we had Navy and Notre Dame, sold out stadium, sold out 4 months in advance. 40,000 Americans went over, set a record for the most Americans to ever travel to a single international sporting event. Now we've got something, right? So we came out of that, and that's when I called Jamie Pollard.
And Jamie Pollard, I imagine that had to be a conversation of like, yes, I want to, but can this make sense? Because it feels like Jamie is very a dollars and cents guy.
Yeah, well, and I've known Jamie for a long time, and he's a phenomenal athletic director and a great person on top of it. So I knew he would get the experience thing, and was hoping he'd be interested. But I also knew it wasn't his home game. So it's not really a dollars and cents thing to him as much. I mean, obviously you need to have approval. So Jamie said, gosh, I love it. I don't know what Gene will think about it. I said, I'll worry about that. Gene being Kansas State's athletic director, Gene Taylor. So he said, let me talk to Coach Campbell and I'll get back to you. And I've had that conversation with athletic directors before, but I've never had what happened next, which was in less than 20 minutes, Jamie called me back and said, we're in it.
That's great. That's great. And
so when I met Coach Campbell in person, I said, Coach, I got to tell you, Jamie called me back so fast. It's never happened quite like that. what was your thoughts? And he said, and he's a man of pretty limited words in my experience, as you guys probably know him a lot better than I ever will. But he said, I had seen the game. I think it's a great experience for the guys on the team and it's a great experience for the program and the exposure. And so I just called somebody who had done it recently and asked them. I said, who'd you call? He said, Marcus Freeman. I said, what did he say? He said, I'd do it every year if I could. So
that's the Notre Dame head coach, right?
Yeah, the Notre Dame head coach. Yeah, he said, I loved it, and I'd love to do it again every year. So anyway, thank you, Coach Campbell. Thank you, Coach Freeman.
Yeah, so, and that's actually really interesting. I didn't put two and two together of the fact that Iowa State plays Kansas State in Ames this year in a few weeks. Well, that means then the game is in Manhattan next week. So yeah, Gene Taylor is probably a much harder sell to try and get this done, because Jamie can then say, hey, we get to take our kids to Ireland, make some money, and sell some packages and all that kind of stuff. But I imagine. So what did the conversation with Gene Taylor then? How did that go? It's really interesting for Iowa State fans. One, because it's in Ireland, but two, because it's freaking Kansas State. So like that being an extra part of it. So how did that conversation go?
Yeah, let me go back to my answer from earlier. The other thing that really appealed to us about this game was the rivalry game. There's no doubt that we haven't had it like this before, where it's such an evenly matched fan base of who's going to, kind of carry the game with the crowd.
It's not too much. It's just there's like one side still a little better.
I hope there's two sides that feel that way. We'll see. So yeah, the Kansas State conversation, obviously, quite frankly, Jamie said, I don't know if Gene would go for it, but yeah, I'm in for sure. I've known Gene Taylor since '96 when he was at the Naval Academy when they played over in Ireland for the first time. So and we've done a lot of work for them and been involved with a lot of great projects along the way at the Naval Academy, and then with Gene and other stops. And we do work at Kansas State as well. So Gene said, wow, sure is interesting. Let me talk to Coach. Anyway, he called back and invited me. He said, Coach is open to the conversation. Went and sat with Coach Kleinman and Gene for an hour. And really impressive coach. He was taking notes the whole time, asking questions, got to the end of it and said, this is an opportunity for the guys in our program that they'll never get again. Let's work this out. So
Jeff, you mentioned obviously Kansas State's losing a home game. I don't feel bad one bit because I never played Kansas State at home in my 4 years at Iowa State. We played at Arrowhead, and then at K-State. So it's payback for that. So now, John, this since Brett Yormark has come into the Big 12 conference, he really wants to make Big 12 kind of, globally, talk about basketball games in Mexico, wherever else. And, the NFL has kind of expanded over to Europe as well, too. I don't think there's NFL games in Ireland.
Yeah.
There are?
Yeah.
Yet.
All right. Well, I don't know. What does this college football, what does the Aer Lingus College Football Classic do for the economy in Ireland?
Amen, right there. Grant, that's why we get the support we do. The economic impact that they published, the government published, prepared by Grant Thornton accounting firm, from this year's game was 130 million euro direct impact in the Irish economy.
Good.
And last year's game was almost 200 million. And that's not one of these fluffy economic impact reports that says, you bought a pint at the pub, so that bartender went and spent 12 cents down the street on a candy bar. This is direct impact into their economy. So this has resonated and registered on the Irish calendar in a big way. We're getting huge turnout, huge interest. It's a big deal, and they love it for their tourism industry.
Obviously, this year too, College Game Day went to it as well too. So, you've got I think it's the first year College Game Day is gone.
First time they've ever been out of the country. Yeah,
Pat McAfee probably had a good amount of sway into doing that. It's like, can we just go to Ireland and do this?
He did one of the shows from a pub. So
yeah, he feels like he had a good time.
That was great. Yes.
So I hope that, I don't know if College Game Day will go back next year, but that'd be cool to kind of make that kind of an annual thing, because there aren't very many games, on week 0, 1, and then 2. This will be, the marquee matchup of week 0. So
this will be the marquee matchup. ESPN will be broadcasting it. And they loved this year. They loved game day. They had 2 million viewers on week 0 from 9 till noon. They can't get that with anything else. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's
nothing I can tell you that.
What's wild about, and I understand how intellectual property works. I understand how TV rights work. But an interesting thing, you were talking about the economic impact. So this is going to be so 2016 was the first one, had 2 of them canceled. So that makes like 7-ish.
So this is the third straight year. We announced a 5-game series back when we before COVID canceled them. So yeah, we've had, this will be the 4th, right? 22, 23, 24 have been played. So this will be year 4 of the five game series.
Since you've had some now, and if there's a big economic impact, and I imagine most of the fans that are going over there are not like getting drunk, getting in a fight with a bunch of people. Like, they're there and they're really enjoying the tourism of being there. As far as maybe they are, but is there, as far as the percentage of fans that are paying attention to this game locally, is it mostly Americans coming over, and the percentage of Irishmen or Irish women that are there, has that gone up as they've had more of these games and they've paid more attention to it? Like, the game growing in Ireland because of these?
Yeah, which is why the NFL loves us, quite frankly. We're building the game of American football in another country. But yes, very much so. The stadium this year was just slightly more than half and half Americans, and the rest were Irish. But it was a hard sellout. I had people asking me for people I needed to help that I wanted in the stadium a week before the game, and it took me a while to come up with a way to get them in. So it was a hard sellout. The Irish very much are. They love watching, they love the American football, but they love the razzmatazz even more. So that's the word they use. It'll be in the newspapers. You'll hear it on the radio. When I do something like this in Dublin game week, every you in Ireland will ask me about the razzmatazz. They love music in Ireland. They know music. They don't know American football, but a marching band, they don't have marching bands. So they love the marching bands. They love the cheerleaders. They love all the pageantry. We have really cool game production. So it's as good of a commissioner told me this year, this is better than a bowl game. It's a conference championship atmosphere because you got a full house with nuts energy in it for a great game. So it's a conference championship atmosphere in what you used to think of as a bowl game kind of a setting, but it's actually better than that now because bowl games struggle to get what we've got.
Right. And I think especially because everyone's going to be participating, it is an interesting thing that it's week 0. Like, you look at Florida State and Georgia Tech. 8 weeks ago or whatever it is, Florida State had optimism. Now, if you were to have this game in the middle of November or at the end of the year, I don't think Florida State has that level of optimism. But with Iowa State and Kansas State, like, this feels like one where both teams are going to be expected to be really good again. And this is the first crack at it that you get to be able to prove how good you're going to be. So yeah, the energy of like week 1 already, and now you have all this game production stuff. It does sound just like a really cool opportunity. And just the vibe in that stadium has got to just be anticipation plus excitement.
Plus, it's a stadium with, as I said, about 48,000 seats we can fit for American football. And it's like most of the European stadiums. The seats, there's an overhang all the way around where the seats are covered. The field is exposed, but so it's certainly not an indoor stadium. But that coverage you get in an intimate stadium means the crowd noise just stays in there and reverberates, and it's a dynamite atmosphere in there. It's electric.
That's pretty cool. Aiden, I think we need to look into changing the name of our show from Kickin It to Razzmatazz. I love that.
I think Razzmatazz. I think you guys.
Yeah, I'm going to use that so often now. Now, you may have no insight on this, but I'm trying to do a little dive in here for the listeners. Usually when there's like a special game like this, a fun uniform or something different might come out. Do you have any insight if Iowa State's going to have any kind of official gear, maybe like some Irish gear or any kind of alternate uniforms they may be wearing for this game?
I do not know. We have seen that in the past, so we hope there will be. We've seen everything from a helmet sticker to new cleats and socks to jersey patch to an entirely different helmet. So we've seen a bit of everything, but they have not given me any insight as to what they'll do.
A lot of teams, I guess around the country, kind of give Iowa State slack for their black uniforms that are just black and white. There's no cardinal, no gold. So in the spirit of keeping just fans annoyed, I hope Iowa State comes out in green uniforms. green and orange.
If my college football ruling understanding is correct, they'd have to clear that with Kansas State, because as Kansas State as the home team, I believe home wears dark, do they not?
You can wear green pants. There you go.
It can be a pastel green and
it's an Easter egg green. It's not really the shamrock green that you associate with Ireland. It's like pale.
It's 40 shades of green, Jeff. So there's any green works.
Cool.
Another thing that I think fans may be interested in, not that we're all remotely competitive. So on our shows and other places, other advertising channels that you've been actually trying to get stuff out, we've been kind of promoting actually purchasing packages. We'll get into what those packages are, because we've been describing them off of a limited bit of information, but you literally put them together so you can give a better indication for people what this experience is going to be like in a second. But more to the point, are we better than Kansas State?
yes.
I don't know how you measure that. But for us,
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the point with phrasing it that way.
it is funny that you would ask that today, because this is coincidental. But in the oddities of oddities with the freak nature of this, as of today, both schools have bought the exact same number of packages so far. Oh. So we have got a full scale, full throttle competition that we want to launch. We'll get into that maybe when we get into January or something and update everybody. But we literally have the exact same number sold to each school right now.
All right. Well, Aiden, you want to just plug one of those in? Just grab William's card. Grab William's card. Okay, so about the packages themselves.
Put it on my tab.
Charge to Grant. Can we? I'm interested to go back just a bit. So this is this will be game number 4 of 5 of the thing, and you've been doing this for a long time.
It'll keep going beyond that, but yes, of the 5 that are now.
Of the 5 so far that are initially contracted. What have you learned from the first few regarding the actual travel experience of fans from the States that from week 1 or year 1 of this, or even back in 2016 when the proof of concept game was going on? What have you learned differently across the game 1 to now?
Well, one of the things that we've really embraced and that they love in Ireland and have embraced is that everybody, the vast majority of people will make this a vacation of at least a week. And the football game just essentially becomes the excuse for making a trip to Ireland that they've always wanted to make and have never done. And so our number one seller by far is 3 cities. And we have a number of different options for which cities you would package in with Dublin. But the one that sells the most is Kerry and Galway. And you can do that in really any way, shape, or form order. But most people are doing it with the game in the center. So they fly over to Dublin. They fly to Ireland. They go over to one of the areas, counties, cities outside of Dublin first, go into Dublin for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then head back out to the countryside. And what that allows you to do, most importantly, you're seeing a lot of different parts of Ireland. You're meeting a lot of different people. And B, you're getting your airline options off of the most peak days. The Sunday after the game is the busiest day at the Dublin airport all year. So you really don't want to be fighting everybody else for that expensive ticket on Sunday when you can get out of there on Tuesday or Wednesday with different options. And so it gives you a lot more flexibility. And with a lot of the places to do your package other than Dublin being Kerry and Galway, like I just mentioned, those on the western half of Ireland, which is actually closer to the Shannon airport. So it gives you a lot of more flexibility on how you're going to do your routing of your airplane.
Yeah, and I think I don't mean to monopolize conversation, Grant, and we're in 2 different states right now. So otherwise, hey, Grant, you want to just go to the bathroom. You're good. But a thing that I think is interesting, and just as like a consumer pain point to just be able to address for some people, if they're reticent on booking it. So like Aaron, my wife and I travel a lot. We've gone to Europe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in the last few years. And one of the things that I like about Europe is that you can completely just disappear into another culture. And for some people, that's a really interesting thing. For other people, they want to go to a new culture, but still have some connection with like, oh, I'll see other Iowa State fans or other Kansas State fans, and they want that. But for someone who wants to sort of disappear into the culture and not just be like, well, I don't want to go to Ireland and see Steve from accounting over there at the same time. How do you solve for both of those customer needs? One, the person that does want to be around the action and around other people from the States, and then the other person that wants to be able to just go do Ireland and just also go to the game, but not be just in Ames, Dublin.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And let me try to hit that a couple different ways. The Ames, Dublin on Friday and Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Dublin will almost be inescapable, because it will be a takeover and it will be the coolest thing you've ever been part of as an Iowa State fan. So as wonderful as the Riverwalk was in San Diego, trust me, this will be even better when you see the Temple Bar area and Dame Street and Aviva Stadium. Outside of that, we've got it, well, we've got it so you can do it either way. What you do want, I'm pretty sure everybody wants, is a really good seat at the stadium. So that's going to be a starting point and a good place to stay in Dublin. Those are like essential things that everybody wants. And then outside of that, gets into the flexibility you're talking about there. If you're somebody who wants things taken care of for you and press a button and somebody's going to tell me, because I'm uncomfortable in a foreign country, where to go, what to do, and has plenty of free time, but here's the top things, great. Take one of those packages. At the other extreme, we've got the independent drive, where you can literally choose your places you're going to stay and route of where you're going to go and just go explore. So, and everything in between that.
And John,
one other thing I should mention, if you're on that Dublin portion on those packages, while there's not a lot of spots that's still open for this, but right now we've got the Iowa State Guinness Storehouse welcome experience. The Guinness Storehouse is essentially, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like the top tourist attraction in Ireland, and it wins awards.
It's like Willy Wonka for beer.
Yeah. Well, I remember a fan of another school last year when I was there during that event. We take over the whole Guinness Storehouse, which is maybe 8 floors high. Shows you how you make a Guinness. You eat, you drink, you've got entertainment. But I had a fan of a school, when he saw who I was, just walk up and say, "Dude, this is like adult Disneyland. This is awesome."
that's great. John, one question I want to ask you too. Europe is a little bit different in America in that it's a lot closer and get to places, a lot quicker, a lot easier to see major things. What is the easiest way for anybody going over to travel? I know my wife and I went to Italy a couple years ago, and train was pretty easy. We could also Uber or walk places, if we were staying in a spot where there's a lot of stuff around. What's the easiest way for people to get around over there?
You've got options of trains and buses. The train system is not like Italy with the high-speed rail that you've got across, I guess I'd say mainland Europe, because Ireland is an island. So it's not as robust of a train system as you see across the rest of Europe. But the trains are there. There is public bus service. Certainly, like in Dublin, in fact, this is an interesting note, Aviva Stadium has no parking lot. Nobody would ever drive to a game at Aviva Stadium. There's nowhere to park. They wouldn't even consider doing it. They would walk. Or they would take the public transportation, which is a train system, both locally and from the regions, that have a stop right there at the stadium. Now, we'll have, no exaggeration, we'll literally have hundreds of people out there when you're coming out of the stadium to make sure you can find where you're trying to get, if you're looking to get to the bus for one of our packages, or you're walking back to city center, or you're going to get on the train to go back to a region a bit outside of Dublin. But Ireland is a walking country except in between cities.
So do fans tailgate as well too before the game? Is that allowed?
Yeah, well, we don't tailgate right at the stadium because there isn't. So we have a couple of things. We have some hospitality packages that are within walking distance of the stadium, where they can have a traditional tailgate experience with barbecue and entertainment. Cheerleaders, band will come by and lead a parade into the stadium when it comes time. And then we also just encourage, you're in Ireland, you're in Dublin, take advantage of that. If ever a city was built to just be one big tailgater, it's there. And you walk the Aviva Stadium is a half-hour walk from city center, and it's in a gorgeous neighborhood. So when I say half-hour walk, that's not like you left the city and then you were lost forever. You will be walking a street that will have pubs on it at every street corner. So a lot of people will start out in city center, like where game day was this year with the ESPN setup, and they'll leave that area a couple hours before the game, start walking 10 minutes, stop in a pub, have a pint, walk again and go the rest of the way, or things like that.
That sounds like a dream. And also, a fish and chips and a pint in Dublin on game day, like if I was to die tomorrow and I could have that, I would be totally fine. We had when my wife and I were in London, we found a place that was just underneath. It was like not literally underneath, but like where the cathedral is, where the royal weddings and stuff are. It was like in the shadow of that, and we had to go into the basement to wherever it was, and it was the best fish and chips and a pint you ever had, just because they've been making it for 500 years.
We're going to accept that as a challenge, Jeff, and we're going to find you a better one. You're going to go to Leo Burdock's in Dublin, and you're going to find out you now have had the best fish and chips.
The best fish and chips. So where for the package, so at cyclones2ireland.com is where people could actually go to actually book these packages. Can you just give a broad, because like I said, we've done a little bit of it on the show, and I'm sure other shows have been doing a little bit of it. What are the broad packages that they can book on there? And I don't know, the selling-ish features of each one.
Yeah, the key is, I guess I'd say you can do whatever you want. So 3 cities with Dublin in it, 2 cities including Dublin, or just Dublin only. I think the critical things that everybody that goes to this game and should experience are a good game ticket, a good place to stay in Dublin, and the Iowa State welcome party. Those 3 things that really every Iowa State fan wants to be a part of are the key components of these packages. After that, what's your flavor? What's your taste? Do you like 5-star, 4-star, 3-star? Great, we've got all of it. Do you want to see a coastal town? Do you want to see a rural town? Do you want to see a second city? Do you want to see a third city? Do you want to go for 4 days, 8 days? You can really do it any way you want. Everybody that goes to Ireland, first and foremost, should make sure that they talk to Irish people. Unlike any other country in the world, the Irish are dying to talk to you. They love Americans. They love Americans more than Americans love Americans. It's crazy. So Dublin's great because it's such an energetic, fantastic city. But if you can get outside of Dublin, the smaller the town, the more local the pub, the more memorable your experience is going to be. And you can go into any pub, whether it's the bartender or just a local. I promise you, I literally just turn and say hello to somebody next to you, and you have your new best friend. You may be their cousin and they'll figure out how they're related to you. So you've got to get out and talk to the locals. That's number 1. And number 2 is just the beauty of it. Dublin's great, again, but get outside of Dublin and see the beauty of the country and the countryside and the rolling hills and the 40 Shades of Green and all of that. So that's why it's such a impactful experience to extend it beyond just Dublin.
So John,
and one other thing, I just have one follow-up, and then I'll pass it over to you again. Grant, just go to that. Another thing that I was just going to, as a point, I think with packages, a lot of times someone can get skeptical of, well, I can just do it myself. But the problem is that between the ticket, making sure you have a place to stay, because Dublin is a big place, but if there's going to be 50,000 people at one time going to this from the US, not including anybody who's traveling from outside of Dublin in Ireland or the UK or whatever to go to this game, hotels get thin. Game tickets get thin.
Yes.
Tickets in the places you want to get thin. So like travel packages for things like this are really convenient in that they bundle all those things together that you can actually get them, as opposed to being like, I'll go buy my tickets here, I'll go buy my plane ticket here, I'll go buy this. That's the nice thing about a package, is that you are for sure going to get into the game, for sure going to get a place to sleep, and then for sure going to get a way to get there. So like that was just one thing as another potential like client complaint, is that those are important things that you actually can do and not necessarily just do it yourself.
Yes, I agree. And I'd be very surprised if we don't have over 25,000 Americans there again this year, like we've had the past couple of years. And that uses up every hotel room in Dublin. So when I was saying earlier, and that uses up all the good seats. So that's what when I was saying, the package is the way to make sure you've got the place where you can walk when you're in Dublin, you can walk everywhere, and you can have a good seat in the stadium.
I've got a two-part question for you. So obviously I know that Guinness is like the main beer when everyone thinks Ireland. Oh, I'm getting a Guinness. Two-part question. One, do the pubs sell Busch Light there? And two, has a fan base ever drank a pub out of beer?
I believe it's no and no. So I've not seen Busch Light there. We have inquired. And I have never seen a pub run out of beverage in Ireland. And I think that's an excellent challenge to issue to the pubs and to the Cyclone Nation.
Well, we've done it in Memphis. We've done it in San Antonio. Can we do it in the beer capital of the world? I only got one last question. Are there golf packages or something like, or even just being able to just connect with someone? Because if I'm going to go to Ireland, I'm going to golf. Like, I'm going to bring the clubs. Is there a golf packages or something, either a referral to or from for that? Because that to me feels like, again, if I could die, have fish and chips and a pint, and golf links golf and watch Iowa State beat Kansas State in Ireland, like that week.
That's the perfect week.
That sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah, I go to Ireland for golf for a week every year. It is the best golf in the world. The golf course is there, and it's really all across the entire country, because in the Southwest, you've got kind of what I call the Big Mac fries and a Coke, a combo number one. You've got Ballybunion, Tralee, Waterville, Lahinch, just a spectacular tour in the Southwest. The Northwest has phenomenal courses that people don't know by name. And then obviously you've got some very well-known courses in the north with Royal County Down, which is ranked number one in the world by almost every ranking system, and Royal Portrush, which had the Open Championship just a few years ago and is having it again in 2 years. You've got Adair Manor, which is going to host the Ryder Cup in a couple of years. And then you've got Portmarnock, which is in Dublin, not far from the airport, which is a top 20 course in the world. And those are just off the top of my head ones that you've got to see, and they will rival or surpass any golf you've ever played in the world. Yes, we have golf packages. We actually have changed it. Instead of just offering prescripted packages, we customize every one. We give you the link to our the best golf operator in the world of Ireland and Scotland Golf, Car Golf out of Ireland, and they're awesome. And I can't recommend it more highly. We do it every year. I can't get enough.
It would be so awesome. Grant, do you have anything else?
I don't. We really appreciate your time though, John. Thank you. I said one last thing. So Aer Lingus is your corporate partner for this, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. We'll be willing to meet with their creative team. The slogan that I feel like Aer Lingus needs to adopt is "Don't be a dingus, book with Aer Lingus," and we've been using it. And if you want to pass it up to higher ups, that's fine. Don't be a dingus, book with Aer Lingus, and we'll take all the copyright with it.
Go trademark that first, and then I'll bring it to you. Make sure you get the man.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, we appreciate your time. if anyone has any questions on the packages, is there any way to contact you or your team? At cyclonstoireland.com is where you can actually book. Are there contact links on there as well to ask questions about it?
There are, and we it's real people, so we have plenty of people who are eager to speak with you. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Guys.
We appreciate your time.
We're really looking forward to having you in Dublin.
Razzmatazz. That was John Anthony. Fun interview there.
Yeah, he was. I was debating taking the trip, just for schedule reasons and money reasons. But like, the more you talk about it, the more you're like, God damn, that's gonna be really fun. He's
a convincing son of a gun, isn't he?
Convincing son of a gun. And also, we're tied with Kansas State right now, which is horseshit. So if you're debating going, now's a good time because we like to win things. But speaking of winning things, Iowa State did not win on Saturday. But the world is not ending. The sky is not falling. But there was a bad game. So I wasn't there. I was calling the Drake game, which no one cares. But the Drake was playing at Marist. Marist hasn't won a game all year. And there's a reason why they haven't won a game all year. So that was as fun as it was. And then got home. I didn't get home until about halftime or so. So I was listening to John Eric in the drive on the way home. And then about halftime or so was when I picked everything up. So I didn't get to see everything. And then I flew out to South Carolina the day after. So I haven't watched the whole game start to finish. So for you two who did, what are kind of the feelings / takeaways that you got from it? Because I have like some statistic takeaways and some based on what the game that I did watch, some takeaways, but I didn't get the whole thing.
First off, I want to say thank you to Sue and Jay Merriman who gave me tickets to this game. Great tickets, great seats. I went there with former teammate Drew Davis. We went to their.
I know about massive humans. He is the massivest human being.
Just the most gentlest teddy bear, though. Just a great. It can hit the golf ball a country mile, though. Dude's got a nice little swing on.
He's 6'10" and 360 and athletic.
And he doesn't have extended clubs yet. So I'm like, dude, you're just an athlete out there just whacking that thing around. We stopped at their tailgate, though, for probably an hour, just super hospitable and very warm and welcoming. And, man, they got stories on top of stories. So it was great to talk to them, great to meet them. The game, though, not ideal. We lost, obviously. Weather was a little kind of icky, kind of spitting, raining a little bit. But the game itself, man, I feel like the offense just could never get in a rhythm. I felt like everyone was waiting for someone else to make a play. And I also felt like the play calling was very predictable on offense. I think when you see certain guys go in the game, you think, okay, that's a run. And if this guy's in the game, okay, the run is that way. If this guy's in the game, okay, the run is this way. If that guy's out of the game, okay, it's probably a pass. Just very interesting play calling. Also, there were a few, I'm not blaming it on the refs at all. There were a few calls. It was kind of like, what was that? There was one that was, like a 12-yard pass on Texas Tech's final drive where it was reviewed and the guy caught it initially, but then he bobbled it and eventually caught it on his hip. And the guys, I watched it back in the broadcast and they're like, there's no way they're going to call it a catch. Sure enough, boop, catch. I was like, you can't call that. You can't call that a catch. That's not a catch. That's not the reason why Iowa State lost. The missed field goal is not the reason why Iowa State lost. Abu, getting, quote, out at the half-yard line is not the reason you lost. But in that instance, I don't understand pulling him. He kind of struggled in the first half, but he had a great second half, maybe the best second half, the best half we've seen of Abu for sure this year. And I just felt like he was the hot hand. I get it. We're at the 1 yard line and then a false start. So you're at the 6 yard line. I don't get taking him out because he was in there. He was in there for the play that then the false started. Then they took him out, put Hansen in, and Hansen got 3 yards and then ran an interesting play, to say the least. Roll out to the right where Higgins was the only person who ran a route. Rocco forced it, almost picked, settled for a field goal. That right there, I think, was like if we could have punched that one in, would have been a big difference in the game.
So there's a lot broadly to unpack on that. But I think the takeaway that I had looking at it statistically and then going back and just watching some plays. Like I said, I haven't watched start to finish. We're watching some plays the first half and watching the second half entirely. I do think that there is a self-scout that will for sure happen. And a lot of it is you don't know that a problem is a problem until it shows that it's a problem. And like Iowa State winning all these games, you can, a lot of times you don't address it with the same intensity that you otherwise would, like,
Can I stop you just for 1 second? Because one thing that the coaches did say in the bye week was that during the bye week, they one of their main focuses was to identify tendencies and eliminating them for the remainder of the season, and they absolutely did not do that.
Well, yes, tendencies. I think it's hard to know if a game, like I'm hesitant to crucify a coordinator on either side, because a lot of times you don't know if the play that was called was run well enough to even give it a chance to work. So for example, I don't know if this is the case. The call that I think a lot of people have questions on is the one right before Conradi just punked one 60 yards sideways. The play right before that was like Rocco on a quarterback sweep to
3rd and 10 from the 33.
So like that play call, but that I don't think it was, but for the sake of just discussion, could have been an RPO, and someone didn't run the actual P part of the RPO that he was expecting to be able to do that. So he didn't attack it with the right tempo to be able to get there. Someone might have missed a block entirely, just didn't understand where they were supposed to be. Third thing, someone might have aligned wrong, which set up. So if you call a sweep play and let's say one of the wide receivers is supposed to be on the opposite side of the field and you have a corner that then plays as like a nub corner, but you block him with a tight end, you have everyone pull around and there's nobody else there, and you give yourself a first down because everyone's expecting you to throw. So you zig when everyone's expecting you to zag. Like, it could be all that. It's hard to know now, retrospectively, from a sideline, not being in the game plan, not knowing what their actual plays are, to crucify a coordinator. That being said, there are things that I think need to get changed and were addressed. And this is you don't know it's a problem until you know it's a problem. And the things that, like, why was Iowa State, a good offense, not able to move or to get the ball in the end zone? They moved the ball. They had 400 and something yards. They outgained Texas Tech by a lot. It's not they couldn't move it. It's why couldn't they punch the ball in the end zone? All but, let me go through this drive chart. All but 1, 2, 3, 4 of their drives. Iowa State had the ball 13 times. All but 4 of their drives ended in Texas Tech territory. So it's not that they couldn't move the ball. It's that when they moved the ball, they couldn't get it in the end zone, and they were inefficient when they got down there, kind of. Well, why was that the case? For my money, there was a couple things that happened. The first one is that, and this is also that things will need to change. So on an RPO, there's 3 RPOs that were called back because of an eligible man downfield. 2 of those, I think, were in the second half. Both of them were on large completions, 15, 20. I think one was to Higgins, one was to Knoll. I think it's like 15 and 18 yards respectively, got called back. That's not on the offensive line. And that's not on the quarterback, really, because the ball got out really fast. That's on the communication that comes in that play. So to backstep this for a second, on an RPO, there is an run pass option. What that means is that you're calling a run play, but the quarterback has the ability to just throw it right away before the linemen get down the field if a certain player moves. So like most RPOs are second level reads. So if a linebacker thinks you're running it and screams up the line of scrimmage, well, he's no longer in the back because he ran towards the offensive line. So you throw it right where he left. If he backs up to try and play underneath the pass, well, then you don't have to block him because there's nobody there. You hand the ball off. So like that's what an RPO is. You're reading a guy to see if he comes up or back. On that, you just, if you treated it like a pass play, then there's not enough of a run threat to ever get a read on the run. So it's a muddy read for the quarterback, and the blocking scheme gets all screwed up. So you have to essentially not tell the offensive lineman that there's a pass on it, because you need them to fully commit to the running game, because them fully committing to the running game draws the linebackers up, which opens that pass behind them. So you can't say, hey guys, I'm going to throw it, because then they'll pass set. It just gets muddier. But there is a middle ground that they need to have. So on those plays, an uncovered lineman by uncovered, I mean, let's say there's 5 offensive linemen, there's 4 defensive linemen. One of those guys then, because if there's 5 O linemen and 4 defensive, one of those guys then doesn't have someone in front of him because numbers. So the uncovered guy usually is going to combination block up to a linebacker. And if he's really uncovered, and depending on his rules, he might just run straight to a linebacker. And that means snap, step, step, step. He's already 3 yards down the field because he's just blocking a run play. Well, on an RPO, you have to communicate to your offensive line that a pass is an option, but you have to commit to your running game. So it's a weird little middle ground, and you can have just a call for that. And all you do then is just hang on the combination block longer. And a combination block being, if you and I are the center and the guard, and there's a guy between us, then we would just block him together and push him backwards. And then instead of coming off right away, we just stay on that combination block together and push and push and push, because that keeps us closer to the line of scrimmage. There's no foul. So one of the things that you don't know it's a problem until it's a problem. Iowa State clearly does not have a call that tells the lineman that it's an RPO when it's an RPO. And because of that, they had 3 times where big plays get negated because they had guys downfield, because they're uncovered guys just doing their run assignments, even if the ball comes out fast. Now, what does that lead to? When you can't run an RPO, what Texas Tech was doing is their middle linebacker, Martinez, number 10, he didn't have Rodriguez. He didn't have a gap responsibility. He was just floating. He was a good player, but he was also just see ball, hit ball. They had everyone else fit where he wanted him to fit, and then he would float over to the side, or he would float in the middle, and he was trying to track where the ball is. If we can't run an RPO and get that guy in the wrong place, then he will never have a fear that he has to backpedal in this run action. And because if he never has a fear that he has to stay out and back in pass defense because the RPOs are always getting called back, then he can be super aggressive in the run game, which means all of your on schedule runs get thrown out the window. It's not a big deal when you got Abu Sama who can make a bunch of dudes miss in open space, but it is a big deal on the 5-yard line when you don't have an RPO that keeps a linebacker in place because you can't run it. So a lot of this like little trickle down thing is the stuff that you don't know it's a problem until you know it's a problem. And now at this point, the RPO stuff, which would have been the best counter to what Texas Tech was doing, when you can't run it, you have to come up with another, like your third best option, because you don't have the scheme necessarily right to be able to do it. So like, that's a thing that they're going to really easily be able to fix, because then you'd come up and whatever the signal is, and I don't know, Albuquerque. And what Albuquerque might mean is run to the right. And you could then say Albuquerque blue. And blue just means there's an RPO on this, so hang on your first level blocks longer. All it means then is just practice that a couple times so guys know the timing of it, the offensive line knows the timing of it, and then you can actually do it. So those little changes, you need to have them shown to you before they're wrong. And that's the first year Mauser offensive coordinator stuff that you don't know that it's a problem until it's a problem. But like, stuff like that times pretty much every play on offense and defense is there's these little things that Joey McGuire and their staff saw that Iowa State didn't know that was a vacancy that they need to fix. So not to say that they're going to like fix every hole and they're never going to lose a game for the rest of the year, but having these flaws end in a loss means that you now are much more motivated to fix these problems going forward. So it was a bad game across the board, and I'm not going to crucify Mauser himself on like play calling, because it's really hard to know if it's a good play call or if it's a bad play call or bad execution of a good play call. It's hard to know that without studying the film. But there, like I said, there are things that are specific to Iowa State's scheme that do need to get cleaned up, especially on offense, in order for them to run their full offense.
Yeah, and now Iowa State is on a 3-game losing skid to Texas Tech. I think he's only been there for 2 of the games.
Really? Well, I guess, because I think the
80 yard goal. Yeah, I think that was the other guy's last year. Or might have been McGuire's first year. He was right around there. When looked that up. For sure on a 3-game losing streak. They're also on a 2-game losing streak to the newest to the next opponent, Kansas. But sticking with Texas Tech, I was thinking too, like, man, like what are we doing running, a QB power on 3rd and 10 from the 33? I think what Mauser was probably thinking, kind of what you said, we're going to zag when they think we're going to zag. One, and two, the defense has been playing so well. I think that was 4-down territory. So I think Mauser's probably thinking, okay, we'll pick up 7-8 yards here if we don't get the first down. Now it's 4th and 2. We got, I don't know, 5 minutes left. Milk the clock, give them, how much time left.
The other thing you can bank on, Connerty's a dude, and that was his worst kick. It was the first field goal was a shit snap, but then Hold got it down and got it up. That was decent snap, decent hold. What happened?
To be honest, though, he pushed it. It was a bad kick. It looked like it was spinning so fast. It looked like he just barely clipped it, on the bottom of it, which that's why it was short. To be honest, though, the guy who busted through the line, even if Conradi, I think him shanking it the way he did was actually best case scenario, because the guy who busted through the line, number 18, had he blocked it, he had a full head of steam, and if the ball bounced the right way, he could have scooped and scored. So I think there is an issue with special teams right now. The PAT and field goal, they need to mix up their cadence. We saw a PAT blocked. Was it versus Baylor or UCF? Whoever it was.
UCF.
Yep. Almost had a punt blocked again this week. And man, Texas Tech had a touchdown. The ensuing kickoff, we fair caught it on the 8-yard line. Are we not practicing kick returns? What are you doing calling a fair catch on the 8? Bring that thing out. What are you doing?
I don't know. I imagine they have hard and fast rules where they go, I don't even care where this ends up. We just want to make sure we don't fumble it or get it. Because if you return it and you get a holding call, then it's back and slippery weather and what. They probably have hard rules on that, and they trust that their offense is going to do something. But I agree. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of returns so long as the return team is really clean, like blocking wise. And it's been mostly clean, but if you're a coach and you see how penalized Iowa State was, you could take the ball at the 25, or you could roll the dice that you get the ball out to the 40. But that roll of the dice could also come up snake eyes, and you get called for a holding call at the 22-yard line. You start with the ball at the 12. But I do think there's a protection problem like that. The punt protection can get. There's no way to perfectly protect every punt. Like, there's always a vulnerability to every punt unit. Your operations just have to be fast enough to overcome whatever deficiency you have. So I feel like, I don't want to say like they're never going to get punt blocked, because that obviously can happen. It has happened at Iowa State before, several times.
And it's not like Perkins and Gilbert have slow op times. They're fast enough that they just
protection
through.
But I think the PAT and field goal protection does need to beef up a little bit.
So, one thing on that, what we did is my holder would say however much time was on the game clock. So if there was 12 seconds left, he would say T12, set, and then the snapper, it'd be on the snapper. So whenever you're ready, once you're at set, whenever you're ready, you let it rip. And I think what Iowa State's doing right now is basically like, I don't know, T10, set hut, and then he hikes it on hut. And I would assume it's on the long snapper. Take your time. Don't, mix it up. Don't snap it right on cue, because those Texas Tech guys, they jumped the line, literally jumped over the line, and jumped the snap. We saw versus Baylor or UCF, whoever it was, almost blocked one and then blocked the next one. So special teams needs to get cleaned up, because Campbell has preached winning the margins, and things have been going so well for Iowa State this year. The ball has bounced so well for us, obviously beating Iowa on a 54-yarder, coming back and beating UCF. Keep being in these games like this. There's one that's going to trip you up. And unfortunately we saw it, just a, perfect culmination of things that weren't going right. Guys have been catching everything. We had our two studs that were, dropped a couple balls, Higgins and Noel. There was one on the second down before the 3rd and 10 from the 33. Rocco had it to Higgins. The safety slipped. Higgins dropped it. He could have literally, if he caught it, could have walked in. Boom, touchdown. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. But what we can't happen is let one game turn into 2, turn into 3. Learn from this one. Watch the film, make adjustments, move on. Kansas is a good team. They're 2-6. They're coming off a bye. They are a good team, though. Leipold's a great coach. It's quote at Kansas, but I expect more Iowa State fans to be there than Kansas. But like I said, Kansas has beaten Campbell last 2 years. Leipold has beaten him the last 2 years.
I would say that the thing that they have, so there's a few things that I think Iowa State will be able to take from this week that they wouldn't have other than that. One is kind of the RPO stuff, which it really affects the linebackers. The reason why RPOs are so effective is because linebackers then have to think about everything all the time.
They're a step slow.
They're a step slow because they have to be. If you're too fast, I'm going to throw it right behind you. And Rocco's really good at that. And Bramer's really good at catching that. So not having him on the field, that's effective, but are affecting it. But other things that you can address between now and next week are your understanding of how a defense is going to attack you and how an offense is going to attack you. Iowa State can run the ball against most anyone if they communicate back and forth. I think like that, just talking and clarifying who's got what. So let me pull up like total yards. Iowa State had 432 total yards and they had 133 rushing yards. A lot of those came on plays by Sama. So if it's not block clean, put Sama there. If it is block clean, you go Hansen and Jackson. Like they've got the ability to run the ball on pretty much anybody. And then it's just, what do you do off of that? Like the play action stuff, they'd be able to take shots down the field. So I don't know, clarifying that. But then defensively was the other thing is this linebacker group is now in the stage of development where I know what you're bad at, and I'm going to make you do a lot of that. Now you have to recognize what I'm trying to do to you and fix it. And that's where, like, a lot of times it happens to quarterbacks. It's much more highlighted in quarterbacks, where, to use Iowa for an example, Brendan Sullivan, way better than Cade as far as being able to run. He can throw it harder, but
he's got functioning arms.
And legs. He's got 4 functioning appendages. But what does he do well and what does he do poorly? I don't know. There's not enough film on him yet. So he's flying through the rafters. Give it 2 games and there's 6 or 10 quarters on Sullivan. He will slow down drastically because teams will be able to put him in a position that he doesn't want to be in. Then can he adjust out of that? Linebackers are in a similar bunch because they have to play so far across the field, back into pass coverage, up into the run fits. Rylan Barnes and did Brazina play much? 9 snaps. Yeah. So you don't have a lot of anybody other than it's like Ellis, Ebel, and Rylan Barnes.
Ellis was out last game. I don't think he played this.
Oh, he played.
Oh, Ebel and Bo Goodwin, so another true freshman.
Yeah. So you got a lot of these young guys, but there's enough film on them now to say, like, hey, let's put 44, let's put 34, let's put 41. We're going to put them in situations where they don't want to be at. You then have to look at that and say, what are teams trying to do to me in certain situations? Now, how do I affect that? And the past couple games with UCF and Texas Tech, especially in the running game, they're showing Iowa State what they are bad at, what these linebackers are bad at. Because it's not blaming it all on them. They're young puppies, and the secondary should be able to clean up some of the mistakes. But a lot of them are just the fact that the linebackers may or may not be in the same position because they're pups. They have played very little football, and now they have tendencies to be able to show. So, like, correcting that going into Kansas, you're going to have the opportunity to do that because you do have multiple games of, 1 time's an instance, 2 times a coincidence, that time or 3rd time's a trend. So you have the ability now to figure out what teams are playing you. So I think that's the thing you're going to do. Kansas can run the ball with the best of them. Yeah. They have 2 really good running backs
and quarterback. Yeah.
And quarterback, but they don't throw it very well off of that. So it's sort of like UCF light. Like it's sort of that style game.
Great. I can't wait to have another mini heart attack, Jeff.
2 pick sixes hopefully don't show up. But I feel like that you've got enough information of how teams are going to attack you now because you've got a couple games of it that you can then adjust to the adjustment. That's sort of the period of the season that Iowa State's in.
Also, Iowa State's offense is being attacked. The blueprint is out there. UCF brought the house. Texas Tech brought the house. So offensive line, I thought versus UCF, I'd heard that the defensive line was kind of doing different twists and shifts and thingamabobbers that they hadn't shown on film. And then Texas Tech comes out and just, brings the house too. And the offensive line, I thought, had their worst game. I thought they looked terrible. I shouldn't say terrible. I mean, they had their worst game of the year. So if you were the offensive coordinator, what would you do to combat blitzes or, expose that?
So it depends on the situation. There's like 5 different ways you can go about doing this. So there's an overload blitz and there's a non-overload blitz. Like let's break those into 2 compartments. So an overload blitz would be when they bring more than you can block. And however many you have to block, let's say you have 5 offensive linemen and a running back eligible, then that means they have to bring at least 7 in order to be a fully overload blitz. But if your running back's not involved in protection, and because even if a running back's back there, sometimes the play call is, I need him to get out to the sideline really fast, so he pulls a linebacker with him, so a passing lane opens right behind him. So sometimes there's a running back out there, but there's 5-man protection. So however many people you have blocking, if there's more blitzers than you have to be able to pick it up, that's a really easy fix. Is somebody's got to be hot somewhere, and where are they hot? And hot meaning, hey, if they're bringing the unblocked defender is to my right, then one of the receivers to the right has to run a route that they can win on in 1 step, so I can catch the ball and throw it before the blitzer gets there. That's a really easy fix.
Hot to go?
No.
You say hot to go?
HOTTOGO.
HOTTOGO.
What is that?
Oh my God, Jeff.
Oh my God.
Who the hell is this guy? What? It's the new age YMCA, man. HOTTOGO.
You nailed that, Grant.
Thank you.
Proud.
Get with the times, Jeff.
Hot to go, man. You play that song tonight, I guarantee Aaron's going to know it.
Who is it?
I don't know who the artist is.
Chapel Roan.
There you go, Chapel Roan.
Got it. Just haven't picked up on the Chapel Roan yet. Okay.
Tell Aaron to play it tonight. You're like, oh, what is this song? And then after the second time, you're like, oh, this song's going to catch you. I kind of like it.
I do. Of the songs that I've heard, Chapel Roan's good. I don't know the dances.
Okay, sorry. So you said when a guy is hot to go.
So if the guy's hot to go.
I think
HOT.
Yeah, so maybe he shouldn't be hot to go on football field, but go.
Okay. Anyway, you're throwing it to the side of the overload. So if there's an extra guy on the right, you throw to the right. You have a hot route to the right. If you're dead even, then that one, as long as you know where everybody's going, you just have to communicate. And then on that one, meaning if there's 5 blitzers for 5 blockers, if you're 1-to-1, you have to communicate who's got who and just talk a lot better. And then that becomes a mental or an emotional challenge. Don't be the guy that gets beat. If it's me versus somebody, I have to beat that guy. I can't get beat by this. I have to take the challenge. And there's no other way to do that. If it's 5 for 5, either you have to start bringing another person in, which then closes every passing lane. If you have to keep a tight end always or keep a running back in always, it closes every passing lane up. So you want to get as many people out in the route as you can if you can win with your blockers. So that one, it's a challenge of don't be the guy that gets beat. Your technique and your attitude has to be that I'm going to kill this guy every time he wants to come in contact with me. The ones that Iowa State are struggling with are the ones that are the slip through the cracks kind of thing. So to use a metaphor, communication.
You use metaphors?
Never. Communication, one of the funny things, and feel free to steal this, one of the most common sources of miscommunication is an unclear pronoun. And it's what is said, and just communication generally is what is said, or what the person thinks they said, what is actually said, and what the person hears. There's 3 different parts of it. And
when I say razzmatazz, what do you think here?
Razzmatazz. But so like the unclear pronoun, that is, hey, can you go grab that for me? What is that? So if I say go grab that, then I know what I mean. And that, to me, is very clear, but what you hear isn't clear. So it's what the person thinks they said, what's actually said, and then what the person hears. So unclear pronoun, feel free. Hey, she said this mean thing to me today. Who is she? I don't know who. Clarify what the pronoun's about. So unclear pronoun. If you're ever having a disagreement with a spouse or a friend, and you don't know what you're talking about, just say unclear pronoun. Solves a lot of problems. But to take that to the football field is if you know that there's a crosser coming or a blitzer or a twist or something like that coming. If you say twist, 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 and I'm a guard and you're a center and you're saying twist, 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 is it on film? Is this guy twisting to me, or is he twisting past me to get to the tackle? Is he twisting from the center to the other side, like you have being much more clear as to where everyone's going. Because the things that I would say struggling with, it's when they bring 4 and there's 5, but they're just mixing around where everyone's going. It's just talking who's who in the zoo and where are we going. And like, I think part of that is that the left guard has been so transient. It was James Neal for the majority of the game on Saturday. That's not his natural position. He's working into that. And he will be a really good guard because, again, this is his 4th year of football ever. But like, not knowing the same guy, like if you're talking to a person that you have been in the same situation for forever, like you are someone at work and you go, can you go grab that thing for me at a certain step in a process, that person just picks up on what you mean. When you're assembling a part at work or whatever, and you say, I need that one thing. Can you go grab that for me? They know what you mean. And that gets much more clear. When you start replacing guys in and out, you need to know, everybody across the board needs to know what that quote that means in this situation. So it's clarifying with the guys that are in there where everything's going to be. So it's one of those like film room and practice things with the same group of 5 dudes that can communicate exactly what they mean, exactly what they see, so that no one is caught off guard that, oh, when you said twist, I thought I was going to pass him off the tackle because in film we saw him pass all the way over there. And the center's like, no, I meant he's coming to twist to you. And there's an end out there and there's a whatever, like knowing where everybody's at, like that's all communication. So it's just a lot of like, all right, back to what I was saying before. It's the adjustment to the adjustment. How are teams attacking you? And so you need to adjust to how they're going to attack you. So those kinds of things like communication and challenging them not be the guy that gets beat, because they're not bad. Again, there's 433 yards or 432 yards, and they threw for what, 299. So like, it's not that they're
399.
Yeah, it should have been more, but it's not like they're bad. They still threw for almost 300 yards in the game, including whatever -17 it was on the last Hail Mary prayer play. So like they didn't play
woo-woo, as we call it.
Yeah.
The pitchy woo woo.
Yes.
We had one, we called it Wildcat, and it would have worked were we ever in a situation.
I thought our laterals this game was like catch a hot potato, like try to get some yards first.
Yeah,
my wife asked me. My wife was out of town. She asked me. She goes, "What was that?" I said, "Well, that's what you want to do, but not like that."
Yeah, they practice that kind of sometimes. It's just you never expect to use it.
So one thing, and I know we're running short on time here, but 2 more things I want to talk about. One, Bramer's in a full leg cast and on like crutches, so hopefully he's back sooner than later. I don't think it's a major thing. I'm going to guess it's a sprain of some sort, and they're being very precautionary. But thinking of Bramer, one thing I think could combat, and again, this is my kicker mind going if I'm playing college football 25, this is what I call. If the defense is really blitzing, one thing we hadn't seen that worked quite a bit last year was the old Bramer tunnel screen. We haven't really seen too many like screen plays this year. So I think with blitzes, getting out quick obviously helps, but 2, if you have a screen, that's going to work out well. But also, Abu Sama is this last game. So he was healthy week 1 and got dinged up, and he was healthy again for UCF, but didn't really play a whole lot. I think we're starting to see him finally get back into true form. I'd like to see the ball in his hands more. Hanson's a little dinged up. Jackson's, hit or miss right now. I think right now we should probably roll mostly with Hanson and Abu until one of those guys mess up. But I would think, I know Miles will listen to our show, so I would say maybe call a couple screens in there. If Bramer's back in there, toss a little tunnel screen, my guy. We'll see if Kansas is bringing the house, just a little dipsy-doodle drop off to him and scoop, see ya, he gone.
Love the screen idea. The Sama thing. That was, as far as game flow, that was a chaos game. Like if they're bringing a ton of blitzes and they have the number 10, if he's going to just play over top of everything, you're never going to be able to block everybody. Sama thrives in that. Like it's that chaos.
Get him in space and let him do his thing.
Let him go one-on-one and like that kind of thing. Hanson is better when everything's on script. Jackson's better when everything's on script. Sama's better when it's chaos, and that was a chaos game. So he was really good in chaos because of what Texas Tech wanted to do defensively. Maybe Kansas isn't going to be that, and it should be a Hanson game. But like in game flow, I agree. That was it was a chaos game that Sama was feeling it in, because it was just like, if number 10 is going to wait and just follow the ball and hit the ball, all right, I'll take 24 over anybody any day in the open field.
Yeah, and especially in a chaos game, it's obviously a snow game, chaos game. This game, the conditions were kind of shit, and then also you have linebacker. There's also a good chance of rain this coming week too. So we'll see that. The last thing I want to talk about is we have to stop putting ourselves in a hole, putting the defense, the offense, I should say, behind 7 points already from the get-go. I'm going to go through the games so far this year, Jeff, and just tell you how the game has started and how the half has started. I'll be quick. Texas Tech got the opening kickoff, 7 plays, touchdown. Iowa State gets the ball to open the second half, drive ends in a fumble. UCF got the ball on the opening kickoff, 6 plays, touchdown. Iowa State gets the ball to start the second half, 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. West Virginia got the opening kickoff, 14 plays, touchdown. Iowa State gets the ball to start the second half, 6 plays, 9 yards, punt. Versus Baylor, Iowa State got the opening kickoff, 13 plays, stuffed on 4th and 2 at Baylor's 15. Baylor's first drive following that, 9 plays, 84 yards, touchdown. Baylor gets the ball to open the second half, 7 plays, touchdown. Houston, kind of an anomaly. Iowa State gets the ball to start the second half, ends with a missed field goal. Arkansas State, Iowa gets the ball to start the game, 7 plays, 13 yards, punt. The Iowa game, Iowa State gets the ball to start the second half, 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. And then North Dakota, Iowa State obviously started with the electric start, 2 plays, touchdown. But then their first possession of the second half, 4 plays, 12 yards, punt. So for me, I feel like, I guess I'm not sure what the philosophy is. I'm not a coach, obviously. To me, it looks like getting the ball to the second half has not worked. It is not working. Letting the other team start with the ball is not working. Getting down 7-0 and then playing catch up, you never want to be in a hole. So for me, I would say, if I were, again, I know Mauser listens, so Mauser, take this to Campbell. Let's, if we have the choice, let's take the ball versus Kansas, and let's drive down the field and put the pressure on them right away. Make them, their quarterback, he's not quite perineum. He's pretty booty cheeks, though. He can't throw the ball very well. I'd say him and Avery Johnson are probably on a similar level, both booty cheeky. Let's make him throw the ball, though, because they're going to want to run the ball with Highshaw and Neal, and then obviously Jalen Daniels, their quarterback. But they are a good team. But I think if we get them out, Iowa State gets out to an early lead and forces Kansas to be uncomfortable, get the crowd behind you, could be another Iowa State victory. But again, Kansas is probably the best 2-6 team in the country.
Yeah, you can't dig holes, and you play with fire long enough, you get burned, and you get behind, pull out a win, get behind, pull out a win, get behind, pull out a win, get behind. Can't hold it off for a win. Still could have, almost did.
A lot of chances.
Really, if that hands to face penalty by Onyedem doesn't happen, that game's over. Like, really, it's interception, minimally kicking a field goal there. If they drive down and score a touchdown later in that, there's so many things that happened that could have switched the outcome, even as bad as we feel. But I don't know necessarily what it is. Is it if it's players are flat, or if they're not predicting the adjustments well enough that if it's the start of the game and they get the ball and they're expecting a certain thing on the scripted plays and it doesn't work, and then they go into halftime and they say, hey, let's try this thing, and then it doesn't actually, the defense has made an adjustment away from what that is. So like the predictive amount of it isn't necessarily right. I don't know what it is necessarily. It's hard to say, but yeah, coming out of halftime hasn't been very good. And then giving up scores on the front end of the game has also been like, it's not been good. And I understand like that they've been so good in the second half outside of that one drive against like the game winner. Iowa State's defense was baller in the entire last 2.5 quarters, other than that one drive because they had the interception outside of a hands to the face. They had an interception, which would have ended that drive, and they had to convert on a 4th down to even get to that position. So like all of the stuff had to go into Texas Tech's favor. So Iowa State's defense, they still rebound better. It's just you'd like them to not give up a touchdown first, and the offense has to do a better job at the start of either game.
This was also the first game that Iowa State was outscored in the second half.
So really, it's that one last touchdown. We have one thing that we haven't gotten to yet.
Eat your pork.
And it's not necessarily a sponsored segment. I think it's not, you know what you shouldn't do? Hide your pork. You should not hide your bacon. Speaking of pork, it's not Iowa pork.
You say hide your pork?
Don't hide your pork.
Why would anybody hide a pork?
Because it's a hint for the other thing we haven't done today.
Oh. I'm lost.
It's hitting yardage.
I knew that. I figured you're on vacation. You didn't want to do it.
Nope, it's not.
I don't want to play this stupid game, but I will.
This one makes it even more
I
frustrating.
automatically win.
It's only stupid because Aiden wins.
Yep, Grant quits.
No, I'm in. I'm on a hot streak. It's hot.
All right, what do you got?
I'm going to go Iowa State plus 30.
Grant?
I'm going to go with I'll go Texas Tech plus 30.
Iowa State 133.
Whoa.
I'm so terrible.
There were no drives. There were no drives that were like sacrificed. There's no kneel outs in either side because Higgins scored basically to end the half, the kickoff ended the half. There's no drive there. Iowa State had 13 drives. Their average starting field position was their own 33-yard line because they started one drive in opposite territory. They only started inside their own 25 twice on those 13 yards.
That's where my math went wrong. Iowa State 130.
I think it's funny that me and Grant could totally figure out how to do this before the show, but we just base it off vibes.
Just roll on feeling. But the hidden yardage thing, like that, it's even more frustrating that game because they had a special teams overall advantage. Other than that missed field goal, the special teams was good. Coverage units, return units were good.
I'm going to say that one. I'm going to say that one kickoff return was not good. I'm putting that on the not good list. Bring that out, man.
But either way, like the special teams was good. The biggest thing that they didn't do, and I sent out a tweet afterwards, but it was just they just didn't execute well enough. And it's specifically they didn't execute when they needed to score. There's 13 drives, 10 drives finished inside of Texas Tech territory. Iowa State scored 22 points. That is the main thing, is that when they got into Texas Tech territory, they couldn't convert those into the points they needed to, whether that's run game, whether that's RPOs, whether that's dropping passes, whether that's missing routes, whether that's bad play calling, or just some combination of all of it. They just didn't execute as well as they needed to when they got into scoring territory. And if you take the execution from every other part of the game, as far as offensively, you win that game by 30. But they just couldn't put the ball in the end zone when they needed to, and they missed a kick, which would have, at worst, got it to a point where that touchdown, they needed a 2-point conversion just to tie it. So, like, all of that stuff goes into Iowa State losing, and it was just, they're correctable mistakes. There's things that you can do to make it better. You just execute better, get penalized less, you execute better, you call better plays, which are all things that they're for sure working on. I am not scared for the rest of the season. Like I said, one time's an instance, 2 times a coincidence, 3 times a trend. Bad game. We'll see how it goes.
They still control their own destiny. So you win out. You're in the Big 12 championship. You win that. You're in the college football playoffs. Iowa State. The Big 12 is probably only get one team. It was always kind of thought of as being a one bid conference, but I think everything that happened this weekend, is probably.
Maybe if BYU goes undefeated. BYU goes undefeated. If Iowa State's in the championship game with them and they beat them in a close game, a 12-1 BYU team is probably getting in.
Yeah. Which I think that'd be.
SMU just beat the piss out of Clemson, and Clemson? I think it was Clemson. Was it Louisville beat Clemson or SMU?
Yeah,
beat the piss out?
Louisville beat Clemson.
But like
that was it.
That at BYU, BYU, if they run the table, Iowa State beats them in the Big 12 championship, they're both in. I can say that with nearly full confidence, no matter what else happens. But really, Iowa State still win the rest of your games, you're fine.
I would like to see BYU again too. See what you guys cooking in Provo, because Iowa State beat them 45-13 last year, something like that. Which obviously not the same team, but they played against Retzloff, the guy who's their quarterback now. But yeah, you can't just go on whatever happened last year. So, you got anything else, Jeff?
Nope.
Aiding anything?
Don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our loyal listeners. And when today comes out, it is election day. Get out and vote. Make your voice be heard. Not going to be political, but you can register at the polling station. Just bring your ID and a proof of address, and you can register to vote there. Make your voice be heard. So again, thank you to our loyal listeners. And as always, remember, adopt. Don't shop.